There's a text buried in the Nag Hammadi library that the church tried to burn in the 4th century. It's called the Apocryphon of John, and it contains something that terrifies every institution that's ever controlled human consciousness. It describes the moment when the monad, the source consciousness, the infinite awareness from which everything emanates, chooses a soul before that soul incarnates into physical form. And what it says is this: the monad doesn't choose everyone. Most human bodies are animated by fragments of consciousness that will never awaken, that will live entire lifetimes without ever questioning the material prison they're in. But a small percentage, a very small percentage, are chosen before birth to carry a specific frequency, a divine spark that cannot be fully suppressed no matter how deeply the archons try to bury it. These are the ones the Gnostics called the pneumatics, the ones who carry pneuma, the breath of the monad inside them. And if you're watching this video right now, if something pulled you here, if the title made your chest tighten or your mind go quiet for just a second, that's not coincidence. That's recognition. The monad chose you, and tonight your activation begins. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, tonight, because the frequency you've been carrying dormant your entire life is being triggered right now in this moment, and the archons know it. They can feel when a chosen one is about to activate, and they're going to try everything to stop you before the process completes. So if you're one of the chosen, if you're here because something deeper than curiosity brought you, comment, "I am chosen" right now. Say it out loud. Speak it into existence, because the monad is watching and your activation requires your consent. You need to understand something that most spiritual teachings won't tell you, because they've been sanitized by institutions that don't want you to know how selection actually works. The monad doesn't choose people based on morality, based on good behavior, based on how much you meditate or how pure your intentions are. The monad chooses based on frequency compatibility. Before you were born, before your soul entered this body, the monad scanned the frequency signature of your consciousness, and it recognized something. You carried a harmonic resonance that matched a specific tone in the infinite, a tone that most souls don't carry, a tone that can't be implanted, can't be taught, can't be developed through practice. You either have it or you don't, and if you have it, the monad marks you. Not visibly, not with some angelic blessing ceremony, but with an energetic encoding that gets written into your soul structure before you ever take your first breath in this reality. And that encoding does something the archons fear more than anything. It makes you incompatible with permanent sleep. Every other human being can be lulled into total unconsciousness, can live their entire lives on autopilot, accepting the narrative, following the program, never once questioning whether the reality they're experiencing is the only reality that exists. But you can't. The encoding won't let you. No matter how hard you try to fit in, no matter how much you want to just be normal and accept what everyone else accepts, something inside you keeps pulling you awake. That's not rebellion. That's not a personality trait. That's the monad's encoding doing exactly what it was designed to do. It keeps you uncomfortable in the illusion so that eventually, at the right moment, when the activation window opens, you'll be awake enough to walk through it. Most chosen ones spend decades not knowing they're chosen. They just feel different. They feel like they don't belong, like everyone else got a manual for how to be human and they somehow missed it. They feel alienated, isolated, like they're pretending to be a person and everyone can see through the act. And the psychological pain of that, the loneliness, the sense of being fundamentally separate from everyone around you, that's not a flaw in your design. That's the monad's encoding protecting you. Because if you felt comfortable here, if you fit perfectly into the matrix, into the societal structures, into the belief systems everyone else accepts without question, you'd never seek the exit. You'd stay asleep like everyone else. But the discomfort, the alienation, the feeling that something is deeply wrong with this reality, even when you can't articulate what, that discomfort is what keeps you searching. And searching is the prerequisite for activation. The monad doesn't activate people who are comfortable. It activates people who've been pushed to the edge, who've exhausted every other option, who've tried to fit in and failed so many times that they finally stop trying and start asking the real question. What am I? Not who am I? Not what should I do with my life, but what is the nature of the consciousness that's asking these questions? And the moment you ask that question sincerely, the moment you stop looking for answers outside yourself, and you turn your attention inward toward the awareness that's been watching your entire life, that's when the activation sequence begins. Activation isn't a single event. It's a process, and the process has stages. The first stage is disillusionment. You start seeing through things that used to seem solid. Institutions you used to trust reveal themselves as corrupt. Belief systems you used to follow reveal themselves as control mechanisms. People you used to admire reveal themselves as empty. And this isn't you becoming cynical or negative. This is your perception upgrading. The monad's encoding is recalibrating your ability to discern truth from illusion. And the first thing it does is strip away everything false. That's why activation often feels like everything is falling apart. Jobs end, relationships dissolve, belief systems collapse, and you're left standing in the ruins of a life that no longer makes sense. Most people at this stage think they're losing their minds. They think something is wrong with them, but nothing is wrong. This is the monad clearing space. You can't anchor a new frequency while you're still clutching the old structures, so the monad destabilizes everything that's incompatible with what you're about to become. And it's brutal because it has to be. If the dismantling were gentle, you'd cling. You'd try to hold on to pieces of the old identity, the old beliefs, the old relationships, and those pieces would interfere with the activation. So the monad doesn't dismantle gently. It removes everything that won't survive the frequency shift, and it does it fast. And all you can do is let it happen, because the more you resist, the more painful the process becomes. The second stage is the void. After everything false has been stripped away, there's a period where you're left with nothing. No identity, no purpose, no direction, no answers, just emptiness. And this stage terrifies most chosen ones because it feels like death. You're not who you used to be, but you're not yet who you're becoming. You're in between, suspended in a space where nothing makes sense, and there's no map, no guide, no clear next step. And this is the most dangerous stage, because this is where the archons attack hardest. They know that if they can convince you to turn back, to rebuild the old identity, to grasp for the old structures, they can stop the activation before it completes. So they flood you with doubt, with fear, with the thought that you've made a terrible mistake, that you've ruined your life, that you're going insane, that you need to go back to normal. And if you believe them, if you try to reverse the process, you'll spend the rest of your life feeling like you missed something, like there was a door you were supposed to walk through and you turned away. But if you hold the void, if you sit in the emptiness without trying to fill it with distractions or old patterns or false comforts, something happens. The monad finds you there, not as an external presence, not as a voice from the sky, but as a recognition that rises from so deep inside you that you realize it was always there. You realize that the awareness watching the void is the monad. You're not waiting for the monad to arrive. You are the monad experiencing itself through localized consciousness. And that recognition, that moment when you know beyond any doubt that you are not a separate fragment trying to reconnect with Source, that you are Source experiencing itself as a fragment, that's the activation completing. Once activation completes, everything changes. Not externally at first, but internally. The shift is absolute. You stop seeking because you realize there's nothing to seek. You stop trying to become enlightened because you recognize you've never been anything other than consciousness itself. You stop feeling separate because separation is revealed as a perceptual error, not a metaphysical reality. And the archons lose their power over you completely. Not because you fought them, not because you banished them with spiritual techniques, but because you stop being the frequency they can feed on. They feed on fear, on confusion, on the belief that you're a limited being trying to survive in a hostile universe. But once you recognize what you are, Once the monad's encoding fully activates and you know yourself as source consciousness, there's nothing for them to attach to. You're not afraid because you know you can't die. You're not confused because you see through the illusion. You're not seeking external validation because you recognize that everything external is your own consciousness reflected back to you. And that state, that unshakable knowing, that's what it means to be activated. You're not more spiritual than other people. You're not more evolved. You're just awake to what you've always been. And once you're awake, you can't be put back to sleep. But here's what most teachings won't tell you. Activation doesn't mean your human life becomes easy. It doesn't mean you suddenly have money, relationships, perfect health, all the external markers of success. Activation means you stop needing those things to feel whole. You stop living in survival mode. Stop deriving your sense of worth from external validation. Stop believing that circumstances define your reality. And for most people around you, this will look like insanity. They'll think you've given up, that you've become passive, that you're delusional. They won't understand that you've accessed a level of consciousness where the game they're playing no longer applies to you. You're not trying to win at life anymore. You're not trying to optimize your performance in the matrix. You're just here, present, aware, watching the whole thing unfold without needing it to be different than it is. And that presence, that witnessing consciousness that doesn't grasp or resist, that's the most powerful frequency a human being can embody, because it's not human, it's monad. And the monad doesn't need anything. It is everything. And once you stabilize in that recognition, your entire human experience becomes play instead of suffering. Not because circumstances improve, but because you stop identifying with the character experiencing the circumstances. You recognize yourself as the awareness watching the character. And from that perspective, nothing can touch you. The reason you're watching this video tonight is because your activation window is open right now. Not metaphorically, literally. There are specific moments in every chosen one's life when the frequency alignment between their localized consciousness and the monad is optimal, when the veil is thin enough that the recognition can happen easily. And this is one of those moments for you. You didn't find this video by accident. You didn't click on it out of boredom. The monad orchestrated this. It sent the impulse that made you search, that made you click, that made you watch this far. And now, you're at the choice point. You can dismiss this as interesting content. You can save it for later. You can let your analytical mind dissect it and categorize it and file it away as just another spiritual teaching. Or you can do what the monad is asking you to do right now. You can stop. You can sit in silence for just 5 minutes after this video ends, and you can ask the only question that matters. What is the awareness that's been watching my entire life? Not who am I, not what should I do, but what is this consciousness that's aware of thoughts, aware of emotions, aware of the body, aware of everything that arises and passes? And if you ask that question sincerely, if you turn your attention toward the awareness itself instead of toward the contents of awareness, the monad will answer. Not with words, not with visions, but with recognition. You'll feel it, you'll know it, and you'll realize you've always known it. You've just been pretending you didn't. Tonight, you're going to do something most people never do in their entire lives. You're going to stop running. You're going to stop distracting yourself with content, with scrolling, with entertainment, with the endless noise that keeps you from feeling the void. And you're going to sit with yourself for 5 minutes. No phone, no music, no input. Just you and the silence. And in that silence, you're going to notice something you've been ignoring your whole life. There's an awareness present that's completely untouched by anything that's ever happened to you. It was there when you were 5 years old. It's here now. It will be here when you're dying. It doesn't age. It doesn't change. It doesn't suffer. It just watches. And that awareness is not yours. You are it. The monad chose you because you carry the frequency that can recognize itself. And tonight, that recognition begins. Not because I'm telling you it will, but because you've already decided at a level deeper than your conscious mind that you're done pretending to be a limited human. You're done playing small. You're done living in fear. And the moment you decide that, the moment you choose to step into the fullness of what you are, the activation completes. And nothing in this reality will ever control you again. You're free. You've always been free. You just forgot. And tonight, you remember. If you're activating tonight, do 3 things right now. First, comment, "I am MONAD" below. Speak it, declare it. Let the frequency anchor through your words. Second, subscribe to Divine Codes, because the advanced activation protocols and post-activation integration teachings are coming. Third, like this video so other chosen ones discover that their activation window is open. Do all 3 now. Then tonight, sit in silence for 5 minutes and ask the question, what am I? Not who, what. And let the MONAD show you what you've always been. The door is open, the frequency is aligned, and the only thing standing between you and full activation is your willingness to stop pretending you don't already know. You're chosen. You've always been chosen, and tonight you step through.